In February of 2026, a drone that cost less than a used car crossed all American defenses in the Persian Gulf and hit the headquarters of the United States Navy's 5th Fleet directly. It wasn't a hypersonic missile. It wasn't a stealth fighter. It was a flying piece of junk powered by a chainsaw engine. And the worst part is, this wasn't the first time. For years, the enemies of the West discovered something that humiliated the most powerful army in history. You don't need expensive technology to cause expensive damage. You just need scale. And they had plenty of that. But then something changed. The United States got hold of one of those enemy drones, took it apart piece by piece, and did something no one expected. And when they used the result for the first time in combat against the very country that invented the original drone, the Kremlin panicked. To understand why this matters, you need to see the scale of the humiliation that came before. Look, for years the logic of modern warfare was completely distorted. On one side, Western armies with defense systems that cost a fortune. On the other side, simple, cheap drones, mass-produced by adversaries who had nothing to lose. Iran developed the Shahed-136, a delta-wing drone, powered by a small combustion engine, capable of flying hundreds of kilometers while carrying an explosive payload. The estimated cost? Around $200 to $500, depending on the version. Russia loved the idea. They licensed the design, built a huge factory in the Tatarstan region, and started producing their own version, the Garin 2, on an industrial scale. At some points, they managed to manufacture 170 drones per day. Between 2022 and 2026 alone, Russia launched about 50,000 of these drones against Ukraine, and the West spent fortunes to shoot them down. A Patriot missile, one of the most advanced systems in the world for shooting down drones and enemy missiles in the air, costs around $4 million. A Tomahawk, an American cruise missile used in long-range attacks, costs $2 million. Even the simplest defense systems cost hundreds of thousands. It made no sense to spend millions to destroy something that cost 500 Rs. The West's adversaries had discovered a huge loophole and were using it non-stop. In 2025, even President Donald Trump publicly acknowledged the problem. He publicly praised the Iranian Shahed, calling it very good, fast, and lethal, and criticized American manufacturers for not being able to make anything like it.
And they are very good too, fast and lethal. Horrible, actually. When you look at what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, the drone is killing huge numbers of people.
But someone, somewhere, was already working on it. And the answer didn't come from the world's most sophisticated laboratories. It wasn't from a secret billion-dollar budget. It came from something much simpler and much harder for a proud army to accept. Ukraine has shot down thousands of Garins over the years of conflict. Most of them turned into wreckage. But at least one unit crashed in relatively intact condition, and that drone was quietly transferred to the United States. A small company in the state of Arizona called Spectre Works received the drone. They took apart every piece and analyzed every component. And they rebuilt everything from scratch with American materials and an adapted architecture. The result was given a name, Lucas, an acronym for Low-Cost Unmanned Attack System. An American officer summed up the process quite directly. We obtained an Iranian Shahed, examined it, and replicated it. Physically, Lucas is quite similar to the original. Delta wing, rear engine, low-profile design. But on the inside, it's a different story. It was designed to fly in coordinated groups, like a swarm, and some units carry something that the Shahed never had. But we'll get to that soon. The unit cost? $35,000. Costlier than the original Iranian one. That's true. But still, just a tiny fraction of what any conventional American missile costs. And much faster to produce. What I'm about to tell you now is something that very few channels have covered in this much depth. It totally changes Lucas's story. In the early morning of January 3rd, 2026 residents of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, were awakened by a sound they had never heard before. A deep, constant hum coming from the sky. Seconds later, explosions. Military facilities in the city were hit in succession. Radars destroyed. Communication systems paralyzed. And while chaos spread through the Venezuelan bases, American helicopters flew low over the ocean, entering the country along the coast. A few hours later, Nicolás Maduro and his wife were being held aboard an American warship on their way to the United States to face drug trafficking charges. The American government never officially confirmed what caused those explosions over Caracas. The operation was called Absolute Resolve, and the details of the arsenal used were kept secret. But independent analysts studied the videos recorded by residents. They analyzed the audio. They compared the sound signature with that of other known systems. The conclusion was clear. The sound was unmistakable. It was the same buzzing associated with Shahed-type drones. And Lucas had recently been deployed in the region. If it really was Lucas, and all indications are that it was, then the new American weapon had made its combat debut before the world even knew of its existence. Silently, in the early morning, in the capital of a dictatorship. The official confirmation that Lucas had been used would come soon after. And it came. In the most ironic way possible. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated attacks against Iran. The operation was called Epic Fury, along with Tomahawk missiles, F-35 planes, and other conventional weapons. CENTCOM, the American military command responsible for the Middle East, announced something historic. For the first time, the United States officially used long-range kamikaze drones in combat. Kamikaze, here. It means exactly what it sounds like. The drone doesn't return, it flies to the target, and it destroys itself on impact. The Task Force Scorpion Strike. A squad specifically formed to operate Lucas launched the drones against Iranian targets. The country that inspired the drone's design was now receiving the drone back. Improved, Americanized, and guided with surgical precision. Think about that for a second. Iran created the Shahed. Russia copied it. Ukraine shot one down. The United States took it apart piece by piece, and now Iran was under attack. By the very concept it introduced to the world, there is no poetry more cruel. In recent military history, Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of CENTCOM, he was directly questioned about Lucas's performance during the operation. His answer was just one word: indispensable. For the Americans, it was proof that the gamble had paid off. For the Iranians, it was a humiliation on multiple levels. And for Russia, which was watching everything from afar, it was the beginning of a nightmare. And when the Russian military saw the result, their reaction said it all. But the worst was yet to come. When the first official photos from CENTCOM showing Lucas units in operation were released, military analysts around the world began to examine them closely. And then someone noticed something. A small box. On top of the drone, it looked like an antenna. But it wasn't just any antenna. And when the Russian specialists understood what it was, the panic was real. On March 1st, 2026, an independent analyst made a series of posts on X, gathering comments from 3 of the largest Russian military channels on Telegram. They were all alarmed by the same thing, what appeared to be a Starlink receiver. Integrated directly into Lucas, the posts went viral. More than 1 million views in just a few hours. And 55 minutes after it was posted, Elon Musk himself joined the conversation. Musk was quick and direct, using a commercial Starlink terminal in weapon systems violates the company's terms of use, and any terminal in that situation is deactivated when discovered. He made it clear that American military communications operate on a separate network called Starshield, controlled by the United States government, not by SpaceX. But the distinction for the Russians was secondary. The problem was much bigger. To understand why, you need to know one thing about how signal jamming systems work, the so-called electronic jammers. Most drones are guided by GPS. These signals come from satellites more than 20,000 kilometers up. From that far away, the signal is weak by the time it reaches the ground. And a weak signal is an easy signal to block. It's that simple. A powerful jammer, properly positioned. It overrides the GPS signal and makes the drone go off course, or crash. And when we talk about this subject, Russia mastered the technique. They developed trucks with powerful jammers. They spread them along the Ukrainian front line. And they brought down or diverted countless drones and GPS-guided missiles. But Starlink is on another level. The Starlink satellites orbit at an altitude of just 341 kilometers, much closer to Earth. There are more than 10,000 satellites in operation flying at high speed and forming a mesh that covers practically the entire planet. The signal that reaches a terminal is much stronger than GPS, and the terminal is not tied to a single satellite. It jumps from one to another, continuously, as they pass through the sky. To block that, a jammer would need to be much more powerful, and it wouldn't need to block a satellite. It would need to block an entire network. Constantly moving, almost impossible, Chinese military researchers did the math. To suppress Starlink in an area the size of Taiwan, it would require a network of at least 935 high-powered jammers, all synchronized and operating in the air simultaneously. Or about 2,000 lower power systems. Think like a Russian general for a second. Russia has less than 100 of these systems today, across the entire Ukrainian territory, and Ukraine has already destroyed 94 of them, 935. That's a number from another universe. Applying that to Ukraine, where the front line is, between 800 and 1,200 kilometers long, plus Russian territory, which would need to be protected against long-range attacks. The number of jammers needed becomes completely unfeasible. And that's not to mention that jammers emit signals, and an emitted signal can be tracked. And what can be tracked can be destroyed. Ukraine has destroyed at least 94 Russian electronic warfare systems since 2022. The Russian channel, obsessed with war, captured the sentiment of the country's military leaders with a phrase that went viral in Western analysis circles saying, "If we don't find a solution for this constellation of satellites within a year, things are going to get really ugly for us." And the greatest irony came from where it was least expected. Russia had also tried to use Starlink. Throughout 2025, the Russian army began installing Starlink terminals on their own Giron drones, terminals acquired illegally, smuggled through intermediary countries, activated with fake documents. The goal was the same: to make Russian drones immune to Ukrainian electronic jamming. It worked for a while. But in January of 2026, a Juran equipped with a Starlink terminal hit a passenger train while it was moving in the Kharkiv region in Ukraine. 5 civilians died. Regular people on a regular train, killed by a drone guided by stolen technology that Russia shouldn't even have. The attack was traced to a drone connected to Starlink. The reaction was immediate. SpaceX implemented a whitelist system, deactivating all unauthorized terminals in the conflict zone. Within days, communications for small groups of Russian soldiers who depended on Starlink began to fail. Planned offensives were interrupted. Chaos broke out in entire sectors of the front line. Musk confirmed that the measures worked. The army that feared American Starlink the most had been taken down precisely because it tried to use Starlink on its own. And now, the Pentagon is thinking about the future. The American Drone Dominance Program. It has $1 billion in funding and $100 million. The goal is to acquire more than 300,000 drones by the beginning of 2028. And the cost per unit is dropping rapidly. In more advanced phases of the program, it should reach $2,300 per drone. $2,300 for a satellite-guided drone, capable of acting in a swarm, immune to electronic interference. American analysts and Russian military bloggers, they came to the same conclusion. Nothing prevents the same technology from being adapted for Tomahawk missiles, for HIMARS rockets, and for nearly any weapon that can hold an antenna. And that, well, is not an evolution in the art of war. It's a revolution. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think Russia or China will be able to develop a real response to Starlink in the coming years? Leave your answer in the comments. If this video made you think, share it with someone who needs to see this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. We bring analyses like this every week. See you next time.